Hello everyone, welcome back. I feel like I don't do enough color alongs on my channel, and the reason I've kind of paused on doing those is they weren't very popular. Like, I would just get a couple views and that was it, so I thought maybe that just wasn't what you guys wanted. Maybe you wanted more short tutorials. But lately, it seems like the tides have turned because I've been getting a lot of requests to do color alongs. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to start doing them. And if you watch, you watch. If you don't, all good. So today, I'm going to do something a little fun. For those of you who are intimidated by Derwent Inktense, they are pretty intimidating at first. And I'm going to take out some of that intimidation by showing you a trick that makes them a little easier to work with as a beginner. And I think this will help a lot. And then we can graduate to more advanced techniques. So if you're unfamiliar with the glorious Inktense, let me grab one. These, excuse my squeaky chair, never gonna fix. So this is the Inktense. It is a blue barrel with the, traditional Derwent end, and it is color dipped, always lovely. So these are not watercolor pencils. They are water soluble, but that is two different things. A lot of people call these watercolor pencils, and it drives me up the wall. You know how you like pet peeves where people like mispronounce something or do something like that? Mine is these being called watercolor because these are actually ink. And that means once you put these things down, they are permanent. You can't lift them up like a watercolor. They won't reactivate unless you just happen to not activate that part. So it is really critical to know the difference. And them being ink, and permanent is one thing that I think intimidates a lot of people. And so when you're going to blend with Inktense, the first thing is you're usually introduced to the water brush. Oh my gosh, this chair is so loud. We're not going to use a water brush today. We are going to use colorless blenders, the most unused marker in my marker collection. I have a couple here, two from Ohuhu. I have one Artify. Any brand will do. I prefer the alcohol-based ones, but you can also do the water-based ones. It's not a biggie, So I just happen to have a whole bunch of these ones. I think I have a Copic one somewhere, and I know I have an Arteza one somewhere. So as they get dirty, you can swap them out. But we're going to use some blending or colorless blender markers, and I'm going to show you some tricks. And we're going to keep the colors simple. We're not going to do tons of blends. This is super beginner friendly, and I want you guys to kind of feel confident moving that color, and then we'll talk about blending, and we can even blend some wacky colors later, but in this one we're keeping it simple. All right, so we are going to work in Creative Haven Summer Scenes. It is a Teresa Goodridge book. If you watched my July TBCs, you'll know that I had picked the beach bar page for no other reason than, I don't know, it just looked cool. Pull my little tag off there. So we're going to be working on this one today. Now, I did not reprint this on special paper. Because I am using these colorless blenders, I'm not going to introduce a ton of water. Now, if you're using a water brush, I would scan and put this on at least a thick cardstock. Like I have a Nina 110-pound paper, works great. You could put these on watercolor paper, but I hate the way Inktense look on watercolor paper. Just me. You could put it on marker paper, but really, because of what this paper is smooth, little thicker than copy paper, but not much. It's just like an upgrade. But this will be fine for what we're doing because we're not going to be wetting the page. So you'll need this, and in addition to this, you're going to need a scrap piece of paper that we'll have off to the side that we use to clean off the tip of our, the brush side. The tip of our colorless blender because it will get icky. So let me grab a scrap piece of paper and then I'll zoom in and we'll get started. Okay, so I got my scrap piece of paper, I got my pencils, I just need to turn them over so I can read the numbers. Excuse all the equipment driving by. It's like farm day, so all the tractors and everything. So I thought this would also be a good lesson because I get asked a lot how you start a coloring page. You know, I don't have a method to my madness. I start with one object. So looking at the page, what do I want to color first? For some reason, I want to color this banner. That's where it starts for me, guys. I wish I had a more magical reply because I get this asked a lot and I'm like, honestly, I just pick something and that's where we go. So I'm picturing kind of like a fun, beachy banner. Oh, but the colors. I don't want to do red because we need red on our little thing here. So let's do a blue, a really bright one. So how about deep blue? Let me see if I can find that. That's bright blue. So I need to move over 2 more. All right, deep blue. Okay, so I don't know if I want each flag to be that color, so let's start with a couple. So with these, I like to just color, fan it out a little, almost like I'm getting ready to, didn't I just say I wasn't going to color both? Just like as if I was going to use a blender pencil and drag it across, only I'm using a blender marker. Now these are permanent, but not while dry. So as long as you can erase the pigment good enough off your page, you are golden. So put that down there. You really don't have to sharpen these a lot either. It's the beauty of them. Okay, so let me show you with the alcohol marker. Because like I said, I think the water medium is what intimidates a lot of people and it's easy to overcome. So you just get it wet and then drag it down. Oh, I'm not coloring there. Get it wet and drag it down. Same thing up here and then pull it down. So see how it naturally pulls it down and then just draw on a scratch piece of paper. So let's keep going. This is like the easiest way to break out your Inktense. So I'm noticing these are not lightening enough, so I'm not going to go as down as much, if that makes any sense. Yeah, when I first started with Inktense, I found them really intimidating when we did like the water brush. And also I was following tutorials where they were using like tons of color. They were mixing pinks, blues, and all sorts of things. And I was just like, ah. So I found that doing the colorless blender was honestly the easiest way to go about it because it still activates the ink. You can still drag it out. By the way, this is a really fun way to do mandalas with Inktense. And it's a little less intimidating. I use the brush nib. If you have a bullet nib, that's good too for those little small spaces. Chisel nib is kind of meh. Now I've wiped it off on a piece of paper. That blue is still there, but it's not actually, like if I were to go draw on my clean piece of paper, it's not as bad as it looks. Okay, and so here's the cool thing about Inktense. You can layer on top of them. So once these dry, which they should be dry, I could go in with a darker color. So we have deep blue. Let's grab some iron blue. I'm gonna add some iron blue up top here, just to make it a little darker. Add some shading. But that's what's cool about Inktense. You can layer them. So if you're really new, it's better to sit there and layer than try and blend several colors together. Just my opinion, because I really struggled when I first got these. And so I stepped back and I started playing with just 1 or 2 colors at a time. So I'm gonna lighten that up. Or wet that up and just pull it down a little, not all the way. But yeah, when I was first learning, I actually started watching Julie's Passion for Colors. I can't remember the name right now. And she does just one color, and she just drags it out with her water brush to create the gradient, and it looks just as pretty as if I put 500 colors down. And more importantly, it took the stress out of it, so I learned a lot quicker. Okay, so we got our blues. I'm going to keep these off to the side so I don't forget. Let's do some greens. I think apple green, that would be a good one, right? Okay, let's start with our apple green. Hopefully I got rid enough of that blue. Now the heavier you put these down, the more pigmented they will be. So always keep that in mind. Oh, there's a... You just have to be a little extra cautious when it comes to that. You rarely have to sharpen these because really it's not a big deal if you get inside every little nook and cranny, because that's what your water brush or even your alcohol marker will do for you. Okay, so we're going to wet this one and bring it down. I know the tip looks blue, but like I said, as long as you can draw on a scratch piece of paper and it comes out clear, you've cleaned off your marker. I mean, you're gonna stain these markers no matter what. Even if I was using this for alcohol markers. Okay. Oops, gotta remind myself to clean it off. I do want to add a darker green for some shading. So let's see, we have apple green. A good one would probably be felt green. Okay, so we have my felt green. It's actually sharpened. Always test to make sure your alcohol marker has evaporated. If you used water, test to make sure your water has dried before you go layering this on there. You want it dry for a couple reasons. One, if it's wet, it'll start activating on this pencil. But two, you can really tear up your paper, especially if you're not using a paper meant to take a lot of water like this one. I'm just putting this very lightly because the alcohol marker is really good at picking up that color and pulling it to wherever I pull it to. Fixed. Because it's not watering down the color like a water brush, you have to be a little bit more cautious. But like I said, I feel this is less intimidating for beginners than a water brush. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. But for me, I actually find it more enjoyable. One, I can do this like at my on my bed when I'm using Inktense, whereas, you know, with a water brush it can get kind of messy. You're always having to clean off your water brush. Granted, you still have to clean off the tip of this, but it's just not the same. I'm just very lightly getting that darker color mixed in up top and then dragging it a little, but not a lot. Okay, and then just wipe that off. Let's see, we already have a cute little beachy banner. Alright, now I'm going to show you if I were to use two colors. Because I think the top of this, no, I want to make it blue. So let's take our blues. We want our darker blue, which is iron blue. I'm going to start that up here. Okay, then we're taking our deep blue. That one I'm gonna fill it in. This one I'm gonna go just sort of barely to the middle because I will drag it. Barely to the middle. Okay. Now, Remember, we have a nice fine tip, but you got to be careful. So with Inktense, you would normally go light to dark if you're blending two colors at once. But thanks to this alcohol marker, I don't really have to do that. Tighter spaces, maybe, but at the moment I can just drag it. Oops, went out of the lines. That's the hardest part, staying in the lines. But that would happen with or without a water brush, because this is one teensy little line. There we go. All right. Wipe that off. So now I got that. I think we need to get our palm trees going. Let's start with the coconuts. I always say that because of the song. All right, I want willow, which is my favorite brown in here. Of course, I can never find it when I need it. That's tan, so I need to move down a few. Okay, so I got willow. We need something slightly darker. Oak might be a good one. Let's try oak. Maybe. All right, so in this case, we're gonna do them both together instead of layering. So I'm gonna cover this in willow, just really lightly. Okay. And then we're going to take my oak, which is a darker color. So with oak, I am putting this in the shadow areas only. So basically where the coconuts are overlapping. There's one there. So it's not overlapping as much, but we're still going to give it some shadow because it needs some contrast. Now on this one I am going to go light to dark because these colors will muddy up like crazy. All right, let's use my Artify. Is that Artify? Yeah. So I'm just going to go from the light into the dark, light into the dark. That moving. If you start noticing it muddying up, just clean off the tip. Sometimes you have to, especially with these browns. Either way, it's still easier than cleaning off your water brush. And then the only thing you need to keep in mind is it looks kind of weird until the alcohol ink evaporates. That's even when you're coloring with alcohol markers. You're like, oh my gosh, it's so ugly. And then once it dries, you feel a lot better. So we'll let that dry. Might even go in with a slightly darker color to add some shading later. We can do our palm trees. So palm trees need to be bright and fun. So I think vivid green would be a good place to start. It's not going to be very realistic though. We could do, let's do actually, okay, we've already used fern and apple. Let's keep them, or wait, did I use felt? Oh, I have already used felt. Let's pull felt out. Then we might darken it up. So let's try one first and see how I like it. Just come down the center here. Pushing a little heavy in the center and then not as much near the end. Just kind of fanning it out. Okay. marker and drag it. You do get more vibrant effect with the water, but it's not a big deal. Okay, so wait for that to dry. I can see how it looks kind of funky right now. That's just the marker. But like I said, I might add a darker color. Just depends on how these look. I'm gonna go a little heavier there. For some reason now I got that song in my head, you know, with the lime and the coconut. That's what happens anytime I hear the word coconut, by the way. Instantly think of that song. And then for some weird reason, I also instantly think of the TV show House, where they paid that girl to like sing that song and pretend she was crazy. You'd have to see the show to know what I'm talking about. Alright, yeah, see, as that evaporated, I lost a lot of my color, so I'm definitely gonna go in there. Just pull this down. So you always want to wait for your alcohol ink to evaporate and see what color you really got. Oops, I got like something. Clean that off. Okay, so we have felt green. I think beach green will be a good darkening point. So this one's dry. Okay, so I'm gonna put some beach green down here. I'm gonna kind of just fan it out. And like I said, you can layer these. You can always go back and add more. You cannot take away though. So that's why I say wait for it to dry. Think on it, and then add. Okay. I'm also gonna grab my felt green and just add a tiny bit more down here where I feel like it got a little too light. So for this one, I'm actually gonna move upward just because I don't want to pull too much of that, my goodness, what is it? Beach green down. There we go. Okay. So let's grab while the others are drying. Okay, so I'm gonna go in with my beach green first, since I know I want it dark. Might even make these ones dark here. I just have to play around with it however you want. Just don't be afraid of Inktense. That's the point. I'll show you a couple more palm tree leaves. And then what I'm going to do is we'll finish our leaves off camera. I'm going to keep this short and sweet, like maybe half hour each. And then just keep posting them. That way you can work on it. You'll have some homework, as I love to call it. But also just little bits and pieces. It's been a while since I've used the alcohol marker method, but it really was super helpful for me when I was first doing Inktense, because the water is very intimidating, especially because you have to go from light to dark and keep wiping off your brush while you're blending. And I'm like, wait, I have to move so quickly. And then if you have like a very absorbent paper, oh, it's so much worse. That stuff. Whew. So I thought it would be good to do these with the blenders, because I have a ton of blenders because I never use them for my markers. I thought that would be a good introduction. Okay, So with this one, get that part there. Just kind of blend those together. I'm not rubbing it and moving it around a bunch. I'm just basically pulling it wherever I want to pull it. I believe I added more there. Yep, I did. Okay. Now I added more here, so I'm just going to pull it out a little. You'll have to let me know if you agree that the marker method is a lot less intimidating. And don't let it fool you. You can do really amazing layering just using an alcohol marker. You don't have to use water. So keep that in mind. Like, this is a beginner one. I can do a much more advanced one with alcohol markers and do multiple layers and show you guys like the craziness that you can do. I mean, I could mix yellow and brown in here, and I find it 10 times easier to mix up with my alcohol marker personally. And colorless blenders are cheap. You can refill them depending on the brand, so that makes it even more ideal. But yeah, they're just, especially if you buy as many alcohol markers as I do, you probably have an abundance of them. And if you don't use them like I do, then this is their perfect, I mean, this is literally what I use them for. Otherwise, they are used to erase because they pick up the oopsies from alcohol markers. But just remember, between colors and blends, always clean off the tip of your marker. And by that I mean, so see here, basically I'm just running it along my paper until it's clear again, even though the tip will never be clean. All right, so let's finish these ones up. Let me know if you guys would like a more advanced one using the colorless blenders. I can show you layering multiple colors. And by that I mean literally multiples, like 5, 6, whatever. I mean, I had a flower the other day that had like 6 colors in it. And I just layered them and blended them, and it was so much faster with the colorless blender than my water brush. And I also noticed you get a cleaner finish with the colorless blender versus your water brush, where if you know your water isn't very consistent, neither is the final product. There's nothing worse than that. Oops, let me just kick that right off camera. Okay. I mean, talk about making shading and blending super easy. It's one thing I love about Inktense. You can complete a page so quickly. And like I said, once that dries, if I decide, you know what, this beach green is still not dark enough, I can go in, I can add some brown. I could even add, what is it, oak back in there. I could even go with my Ionian green and get some more depth, but you can already see the depth. I mean, we've got shadows going on already. We've got gradients down here. So it's really easy and a lot of fun and way less intimidating than it has to be. So yeah, I am going to finish the rest of the palm fronds, however you say it, using, again, we're using felt green and beach green right now, so 1530 and 1510. And then any colorless blender. Right now I'm using my Artify. I've got 2 Ohuhus also. Any will do. So keep using my technique, and we will finish these, and then when I come back, we will keep working our way down and get this bad boy under wraps.